The glowing rectangle in your hand is not a portal to the world, but a meticulously designed sensor, a tether feeding your most intimate realities into an architecture of absolute oversight. We are conditioned to view the digital age as an era of boundless convenience and connection, a utopian expansion of human capability. Yet beneath this frictionless surface lies a chilling geopolitical paradox. The platforms we willingly populate with our thoughts, our movements, and our desires were never truly built for us. They are the foundational infrastructure of a new global hegemony, where the extraction of human experience fuels the most pervasive apparatus of observation in human history. To understand this invisible cage, one must first recognize the core engine driving it, a system defined as surveillance capitalism. This is not merely an economic model based on targeted advertising, but a profound mutation of power. Tech giants operate as apex predators in a digital ecosystem, harvesting behavioral surplus with ruthless efficiency. Every click, every pause, every heartbeat recorded by a wearable device is commodified. This data is aggregated, analyzed, and synthesized into highly accurate predictive models of human behavior. The true product is not the application you use, but the certainty of your future actions, packaged and sold to the highest bidder. This unprecedented concentration of predictive power did not remain a purely commercial enterprise for long. The sheer volume and granularity of the information collected by these corporations represented a strategic goldmine that no modern government could ignore. A quiet, inexorable alignment began to form between the architects of the digital realm and the intelligence apparatus of the state. The traditional boundaries between corporate data extraction and national security protocols dissolved, replaced by a clandestine symbiosis. Intelligence agencies realized that covertly building a global monitoring network from scratch was economically and logistically impossible. Instead, they recognized that private industry had already built the ultimate panopticon, and the populace had enthusiastically funded its construction by purchasing the very tracking devices that bound them. Through classified directives, secret court orders, and mutually beneficial partnerships, the state gained backdoor access to the central nervous system of the Internet. The technology sector became an unwitting and sometimes entirely complicit proxy for state surveillance. The implications of this hidden alliance are staggering. The state no longer needs to deploy agents to monitor the citizenry. The citizenry monitors itself, obediently carrying high-resolution microphones and cameras into their homes, workplaces, and places of worship. The illusion of privacy is maintained through dense terms of service agreements, while the reality is a state of constant, ubiquitous observation. The shadow network's influence still loomed, operating just beneath the threshold of public awareness, gathering intelligence on a scale that previous totalitarian regimes could only dream of achieving. This dynamic rapidly transcends domestic monitoring, evolving into a potent weapon on the global stage. The data reservoirs held by multinational technology firms are now viewed as critical national assets, as vital to a country's strategic dominance as petroleum or nuclear capabilities. The geopolitical chessboard has been fundamentally altered. A nation's ability to exert influence is no longer measured solely by its military might, but by its capacity to control, analyze, and weaponize global information flows. Consequently, a silent, invisible war is raging for digital supremacy. Rival superpowers recognize that whoever controls the data pipelines controls the narrative, the economy, and ultimately the political destiny of their adversaries. This is the essence of modern hybrid warfare, where kinetic strikes are replaced by the subtle manipulation of information environments. The extraction of foreign data is treated as a matter of supreme national security, leading to escalating tensions over where servers are located, who writes the code, and which sovereign entity holds the ultimate decryption keys. At the tactical level, the raw data is weaponized through the deployment of highly sophisticated algorithms. These complex mathematical instructions do not simply passively organize information, they actively shape reality. Algorithms are designed to maximize engagement, a metric that invariably prioritizes emotional resonance, outrage, and tribalism over nuance and factual accuracy. When these systems are co-opted by state actors, they become instruments of mass psychological manipulation. Foreign intelligence services and state-sponsored hacker groups exploit these algorithmic vulnerabilities to launch devastating influence operations. By injecting carefully crafted narratives into the digital bloodstream, they can amplify societal fractures, erode trust in democratic institutions, and subtly guide the electoral outcomes of rival nations. The digital battlefield is everywhere, and the casualties are the shared objective truths that bind a society together. The domestic consequences of this algorithmic warfare are equally severe. As platforms curate hyper-personalized echo chambers, populations are driven into polarized extremes. This is not a tragic accident of software design, but a highly profitable feature that is easily exploited for political control. A divided, distracted, and perpetually outraged populace is fundamentally incapable of recognizing the tightening grip of the surveillance apparatus surrounding them. The invisible cage grows stronger precisely because its inmates are too busy fighting each other to notice the bars. We must confront the profound human cost of this digital reality. When every action is recorded, categorized, and judged by an unseen, unaccountable machine intelligence, a chilling effect descends upon human behavior. The awareness of constant observation fosters a culture of self-censorship and conformity. The space for radical dissent, for unorthodox thinking, and for genuine intellectual freedom is systematically narrowed. The ultimate goal of state surveillance is not merely to punish deviation, but to preempt it entirely, engineering a society that polices its own thoughts. This architecture of control is reinforced by a revolving door between the highest echelons of the technology industry and the corridors of government power. Executives transition seamlessly into defense advisory boards, while former intelligence directors secure lucrative positions on corporate boards. This incestuous relationship ensures that the strategic goals of the state and the profit motives of the tech giants remain perfectly synchronized. They speak the same language of optimization and security, unified by a shared belief in the necessity of total information awareness. Investigating this modern dynamic requires looking backward to understand the enduring nature of imperial power. Throughout history, empires maintained dominance by controlling the physical infrastructure of trade and communication, from the Roman roads to the British naval routes. Today, the empire is digital, and hegemony is achieved by dominating the fiber optic cables, the massive server farms, and the satellite constellations that route global communication. The medium has changed, but the imperative for absolute control remains identical. This realization has sparked a desperate global scramble for digital sovereignty. Nations that once welcomed foreign technology platforms are now awakening to the reality of their own digital colonization. They understand that relying on external entities for critical communications infrastructure is a fatal strategic vulnerability. European and Asian powers are increasingly attempting to wall off their digital borders, demanding data localization and pushing back against the encroaching influence of Silicon Valley and its foreign equivalents. Yet, the legislative attempts to rein in this power often resemble theatrical performances rather than genuine regulatory crackdowns. Fines levied against tech behemoths are absorbed as mere operating expenses, while the core business model of data extraction continues unabated. The state cannot truly dismantle the surveillance apparatus because it has become utterly dependent upon it. The classified lessons from that old conflict never faded. Power rarely relinquishes a tool that grants it absolute visibility. Beneath the abstract concepts of algorithms and data policies lies the physical reality of this control grid. The Internet is not a cloud. It is a sprawling, vulnerable network of undersea cables and heavily fortified data centers. These physical nodes are the critical choke points of the modern global economy. Intelligence agencies map these networks with the same meticulous care that generals once mapped physical terrain, identifying vulnerabilities where data can be intercepted, duplicated, or severed entirely. The vulnerability of this physical infrastructure introduces a terrifying new vector for geopolitical conflict. A coordinated attack on key undersea cables or a targeted disruption of regional data centers could instantly cripple a nation's financial system, its power grid, and its military communications. The threat of such an attack is used as a silent deterrent, a digital sword of Damocles hanging over the head of any nation that dares to challenge the established technological order. As trust evaporates and nations prioritize security over connectivity, the vision of a unified global internet is fracturing. We are witnessing the rapid emergence of a splinternet, a balkanized digital landscape where different regions operate under entirely distinct technological regimes. This fragmentation is not merely technical, it is deeply ideological. It represents the physical manifestation of geopolitical fault lines, with each bloc erecting digital iron curtains to protect its sovereign data and control its domestic narrative. Within this fractured landscape, authoritarian regimes are actively exporting their models of digital control to developing nations. By providing cheap infrastructure, facial recognition technology, and advanced monitoring software, These powers are establishing a new form of technological vassalage. In exchange for modernization, these client states surrender the digital privacy of their citizens and bind their technological future to a foreign power, expanding the reach of the global surveillance network. The ultimate trajectory of this system leads toward a paradigm of predictive control. By feeding decades of historical data into advanced artificial intelligence, states and corporations are moving beyond monitoring the present to forecasting the future. Predictive policing algorithms attempt to identify crimes before they occur, while behavioral models anticipate political unrest. This represents the absolute pinnacle of surveillance capitalism, where human agency is reduced to a statistical probability, managed and mitigated by the machine. The psychological toll of this predictive environment is insidious. It creates a society paralyzed by the fear of algorithmic misinterpretation, where an innocent search query or a misunderstood association can trigger a cascade of automated consequences. Individuals are forced to constantly curate their digital footprints, performing a sanitized version of themselves to appease the watchful algorithms. The invisible cage becomes a psychological prison, built from the data we freely surrendered. The transformation is complete. Tech companies, once celebrated as the vanguard of human liberation, have been irrevocably forged into the most formidable tools for state surveillance and control ever conceived. The glowing rectangle remains in your hand, its screen bright and inviting, a testament to the quietest, most comprehensive conquest in the history of global power. The data flows without interruption, the algorithms iterate in the dark, and the architecture of absolute oversight waits for your next keystroke.